This is a HausHill original podcast.
Yeah, this album is dedicated to all the teachers that told me I never amount to nothing. It's all good, baby, baby. See you chunks on top.
Thou shalt not hate.
It was all a dream.
I wouldn't characterize myself as an entrepreneur. I would characterize myself as someone who has found a couple of different things in life that I believed in with every cell in my body, and this is one of them.
So you're the youngest of four brothers, including a couple who became cops?
Yeah, one of them is a Mountie, works for the Royal Canadian Mounted Policeman. The other one was and is no longer a cop. But yeah, my dad was a cop as well.
Okay, so how did you stay alive as the youngest of four?
You get by on your wits. That's how you do it. You don't get by on your fists. So, yeah, it was kind of a rough household. I was less like the youngest brother, but more like a moving target.
Okay.
It was a lot of that stuff. Got handcuffed to the fridge a couple of times. The last time I actually took the fridge door off with me. I was that scared and panicked. So, yeah, we're all super close now, but when we were kids, it was just every day was a new and amazing, messy stabbing death. Yeah.
Well, how did that experience prepare you for life?
You know, it's weird. It really did, though. I mean, when you're a little kid and you're in a house, what sort of feels like when you're around people that are five men, basically, including my brothers and my uncle who were always around. I often felt like I was walking through some sort of weird skin-covered forest. There's these huge people everywhere, and you kind of become hyper-perceptive. You start to really sort of think about how you're going to survive. So especially my three older brothers, who were so sort of physical guys, and there was just rough housing. Like, for them was always funny. For me, it was like a life-threatening situation. So you sort of learn to kind of get by on using your mind, not your fists. So I became kind of hyper-perceptive as a kid, and I know that contributed in enormous ways to the different paths I chose in life, particularly show business and that sort of thing. I was able to kind of constantly mimic people or watch people and look for tiny signs and big signs of, danger. So yeah, that was I think that's how it shaped me mostly.
Okay, so I read that you were overly sensitive and nervous as a kid, and that you struggled with shyness and social anxiety. How did that, how bad was it?
I still struggle with those same things. As challenging as they are, and they're also gifts that come with those things, and it's that same sort of situation where you become kind of incredibly perceptive in ways in which you otherwise wouldn't. You're constantly kind of sensing both real danger and non-existent danger. So those are things that have really helped me in my work. But yeah, as a kid, it was tough. I was a kid I had a lot of anxiety, a lot of different kind of phobias and issues that I had to sort of work through, and it took me a long time to kind of recognize those things as assets as opposed to liabilities.
What do you think it stemmed from?
I think you're standing at that intersection of nature versus nurture. I think some of it was just genetics I was born with, and then some of it is circumstance. I think in any household, it's hard being the fourth kid. That's the kid that's sort of watching and learning constantly, as opposed to the trailblazing eldest boy or girl in any given household. So,
when you envisioned your life as an adult, was acting the thing that you wanted to do, or was there another career at 5 or 6 years old that you thought about?
No, I always thought I'd end up in law enforcement, like my family. So I didn't imagine that acting was a way to get out of the house. It wasn't really like a passion when I was a kid. It was something that I was already doing at home, to survive. So
right.
You kind of, I noticed when I was a kid, making people laugh was a great self-defense mechanism. It really helped me kind of navigate my way through my own home with my older brothers and my dad, and I could diffuse them by making them laugh. So there was sort of a kind of a sing for your supper sort of vibe in my house. That served me in great ways later on, but as a kid, it was a means to an end. It was just a way to get out of the house, and I could act. I didn't necessarily want to. I just knew I could.
But specifically improv, you had to improvise and be funny.
Yep.
Is that what led you into acting?
Yeah, I loved improv comedy. I'm never going to say that I was the world's greatest improv comedian, but it's something I've used in countless ways on every movie and every job I've ever done. So I moved to Los Angeles to get into improv comedy, and quickly ran out of money and ended up with an agent, getting an agent somehow, or bullshitting some agent into taking me, and then, ended up getting a job in show business.
You had success as an actor as a kid to some extent.
I always characterize anybody who works in show business has success as an actor, because it's a very tough field.
But I don't see you as the stereotypical child star with stage parents. You stayed in school, right?
100%, but there wasn't a single soul on earth who would recognize me from anything in the showbiz entertainment field that would make me a star. I wasn't a star. I was just a kid who occasionally worked in show business. So,
well, what was it like in high school? The fact that you were doing this acting, how did your peers perceive that?
I hid it largely in high school. Then I never celebrated. It was always something I kind of really tried to keep as quiet as possible. For me, high school was a situation where the more invisible I was, the more kind of happy I was. So I just wanted to get through that shit show and go live my life. It was, high school can be a pretty violent, sort of crazy place. So when I was, as a kid, I was always trying to be invisible. So I never celebrated this stuff. And a lot of the stuff I did was shown in the United States, but not necessarily shown in Canada. So I could kind of get away with that.
Ah, I see, okay. But it laid the foundation. When did you realize that you could make a career out of acting? And as a kid, did you envision that you could get this big?
No, never. I mean, I never imagined where I am today. I think I'd have to be kind of crazy to imagine that. Maybe not.
Well, hey, a lot of
dream
student
big,
council
right?
presidents expect to be the president.
I guess, right? And that's how that's probably the best way to become a president, is to want it. But no, everything that happened to me sort of in an aggregate kind of way. It was very sort of slow and steady. So I think I owe that a lot. I mean, I'm grateful for that kind of momentum being very, very sort of snail's pace, as opposed to like a rocket ship, because I've watched so many people in this industry come and go, and in various tragic ways and that sort of thing. And fame is a weird animal to deal with, I think, for anybody. So for me, it happened so slowly that it's sort of like getting into a bath over the course of a year. You're not going to get shocked by the water, be it cold or hot. You're gonna, you're gonna just immerse yourself in a way that's really, really slow. So. For me, there's nothing meteoric about fame or any of that stuff. I was able to really kind of assimilate to it in a way that most people aren't really offered that ability. Everything's all or nothing in Hollywood. It's either you're the biggest star they've ever seen or you're done.
Yeah.
I somehow found that. I got lucky and found that weird sort of middle ground where I was able to kind of just slowly build my career.
I read that you were actually supposed to be in college and you moved to LA without your parents knowing. Is that true?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I would never tell my father that
So where were you
dropping out of college.
To be?
I was supposed to be at Kwantlen University in British Columbia, Canada, and I did go there for 45 minutes and said nope, and I left. So I was there for a very short period of time, and then I just thought, I'm going to go do this thing, and I'm going to give it a year. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, I'll go back to school, get a degree, and go join the workforce.
Did your parents find out when they saw you on TV, or did you eventually tell them?
It was about 6 weeks into my trip in Los Angeles, and I called them and said, hey, I'm in Los Angeles. I'm not in school. And then my father hung up on me, and then my mom called me back, and she was always kind of the voice of reason. And then my father sort of came around after I managed to make some money at it and kind of get my foot in the door. I think he was much more accepting of it. But any parent would be like that.
But at that time, it was like, you're taking a huge risk.
Like I set off a nuclear bomb.
Was there ever you're not going to make it?
Yeah, you always think like that. You never lose that thought, I just wrapped a film that I've been shooting for 4 months, and at the end of it, I thought, well, this could be my last. So you always get that.
Well, maybe that's the thing that keeps you good, right?
I think so, yeah. If you get complacent, you're kind of screwed.
So you didn't have a lot of money when you went to, or security when you went to LA, but you had your dream.
Yeah.
What was the experience like, and how long did it take you to start to really work?
I eventually ran out of money. I mean, my family is a middle-class family. My dad was a cop, and we didn't have 4 kids. We didn't have anything, I didn't have anything to kind of lean on in terms of that. So you sort of always had to make our own way. And I eventually ran out of money, so I just asked an agency to meet with me, and I called about 10 of them, and then I finally got my foot in the door one really small agency, and I bullshitted them. I just said, if you send me out on 5 auditions, I don't care what they are, what they're for, I promise you I'll come back with 1. If I don't come back with 1 after 5, you don't have to take me on. I'll leave and I won't say a word.
Did you get the 5?
Somehow I got the 4th one. I got a sitcom. Yeah.
What were the other ones?
The other auditions were they were weird, recurring roles on hour-long format shows. Then a sitcom came along, which was a lot of improv and stuff, skills that I had already acquired. So I was able to kind of somehow get that job.
When did you consider yourself a successful actor?
Well, that's sort of difficult. I mean, I don't, I think I can now say that I've done pretty well in the business. I mean, the things I determine as really successful are things that you sort of have to be the engine on, or things that you generate yourself, or content you create yourself, or and when that kind of stuff works, sort of like the Deadpool stuff, or that, then I feel like I've really done something important, or something at least that's important to me. But I don't know if I ever sort of sit back and think made it.
But what was that first role where you made real Hollywood money, and how much was it?
Well, I don't remember what I mean. I did a sitcom for 4 years, which was probably still the best job I've ever had, because it was.
The residuals?
No, it had nothing to do with money. The best job I've ever had, because it was a live audience. It was kind of what I wanted to be doing anyway, which was improv comedy and that kind of stuff. It was a live audience that would pour in. And then, this sitcom world is about a 6 or 7 or 8 month at most job a year. I mean, you finish your season and then you're free. So I loved it because I would just go travel. I would go backpacking all over the world, and I would do all these sort of things. I think I really spent that money that I made wisely at the time. I got to see the world and have experiences. So, but back then they don't, when you're an unknown kind of quantity, it's not that they throw money at you or anything like that. For me, it was a lot more money than I was making driving a forklift. So I was thrilled with that. I could work 6-7 months a year and then go travel for the rest. So that's kind of how I did it.
So I read that you went through intense physical training to play the action role as Hannibal King in Blade Trinity. How did those roles in the mid-2000s help you in your career?
They helped me. They helped me more personally than they did in my career, I think. Roles things like that, where I wonder if I could make one of those drastic kind of crazy before and after physical transformations. And I was given the resources to do it, which average people who are hanging out at home don't really have access to. A trainer and a kind of a nutrition program and all these things that I thought were really cool, and I got to check out. So that to me was fun to set a goal and hit it. In that regard. So it was less about the professional propulsion and more about the personal.
But all this time, Deadpool was in development, right? I mean, do people realize that it took 11 years?
Not a lot of people realize that. I mean, it's really as a part of the narrative, I think, of the movie, though. I mean, people who are Deadpool fans know that I was trying to get this made for almost a decade before we got the first one made.
You're gonna do a superhero landing. Wait for it. Superhero landing. Yeah, that's really hard on your knees.
What were the barriers? Why did it take so long?
Well, if you see the character of Deadpool, it's kind of an unorthodox type superhero. I mean, it's R-rated. It's a character that breaks the fourth wall. He has cancer. He wears a giant red body condom around. I mean, these are all unusual things for a superhero movie. You don't really ever get to see his face. Studios say, well, you're casting an actor. We want to see his face. And Deadpool's so much bigger than larger than life than just some guy who's intermittently clenching his jaw muscles and squinting in nice lighting. So for me, it was an opportunity to really kind of showcase something that I had been passionate about for a decade when I got that first one made.
And I think this really shows me that you had a keen sense of business back then, right? Especially when the visual effects footage leaked.
Oh yeah.
Suddenly from some anonymous person.
Yeah, we're still looking for that person. And
but it went viral.
My best man's on the case.
Okay. Yeah. It went viral.
Yeah.
And when that happened, the next day they said go ahead, right?
Almost overnight. Yeah, they greenlit the movie. I think they greenlit it, begrudgingly, because it was something for 10 years I've been trying to roll this rock up this hill, and it kept rolling back over me. But begrudgingly, and I say that just because they gave us the absolute bare minimum amount of money that to make the movie. And it was such a great life lesson because necessity truly is the mother of invention. And Deadpool's one of the most interesting IPs out there because it really meets that intersection of viral marketing and sort of like traditional fan favorite superheroes. So like there's no money for anything.
At some point, we must all join forces, become a team. Now, how many of you have taken a human life? What in the ass? This team sucks.
What roles did you play in addition to actor on Deadpool 1 and 2? Producer and writer? Were there other roles?
Writer, and I don't know, I worked really closely in the marketing with George Dewey, who's my producing partner now, but at the time worked at Fox and obviously the marketing team at Fox. But so yeah, it was kind of everything. You just sort of wear every hat and try not to lose your mind in the process.
Will there be more Deadpool movies? How far do you think the franchise could go?
Well, I think it's like an interesting world. I mean, there's so many aspects of that world that are really scalable to me, and I think it's there's just not enough ears or hours in the day for the amount of ideas that I have and the other creators of Deadpool have. So we love it, and we have a ton of different avenues we could go. I think we just got to pick one.
What's the biggest lesson that you've learned about the business side of film and acting in the last couple of years?
Always just embrace this idea that you know nothing, because you don't. I mean, as soon as you think you know exactly how it's all going to go down, or what audiences are really yearning for, you can be surprised. So I love that edict. I like that idea that I believe in film and any endeavor to be a process of collaboration. I think you always have to listen and always ask for help, and the best leaders are the people that hire the best people. So for me, that's the thing that I think that's the biggest lesson I've learned is like, just hire the best people you can, people that you connect with, people that you love, people that you can learn from, and that's how you make. I mean,
but at some point you decided that you wanted to venture beyond acting and get into business.
Yeah.
What made you decide that?
Well, I love marketing, and I love gin. so it was kind of a natural marriage there.
Okay, so that's a natural segue into Aviation Gin, which is your company. Tell me about Aviation Gin.
Aviation Gin is a craft spirit, an incredibly fast-growing craft spirit of which I am one of the owners of. It's been around since 2006. It was created in Portland. One of the only, it's the highest rated gin in the United States, which is important. It's scored a 97 in Wine Tasting magazine, and it's one of the only spirits that was created through the collaboration of both a distiller and a bartender, which is, if you think about it, would kind of be the best possible way to create any sort of spirit. You have two people who are experts in their field coming together, creating the thing that I think consumers would absolutely love. So that's Aviation Gin in a nutshell, or a bottle, whatever you prefer.
I spoke with Andrew, one of your business partners, and he told me that you were a fan of Aviation Gin and just reached out to the company. You just picked up the phone.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay, that really struck me because he said that in the conversation you called and you wanted to buy the company.
Yeah, I did, and I was probably told I couldn't buy the whole company.
I'm thinking, like, who does that? Like, hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
I want to buy your company.
Oh, yeah, I know. Usually that sort of ends badly, but
Do you do that often? Or?
No, I'd never done it, and it was only because it was sort of, kind of, in a weird way, like the same footprint of the Deadpool story, which is that I just found this thing that I really believed in, and the last time I'd had a feeling like that was Deadpool.
So there's a parallel between Deadpool and this company.
There is for me, and I'm watching it happen right now. I mean, I bought into the company. It was a 20,000 case a year business, and now it's a 40,000 case a year business, and that's in less than 1 year.
What do you attribute that to?
I attribute that to just exposure. Anyone who tries it basically switches to that brand. So the more people you can get to try it, the better your business is. And you lead with, I can never be as great an ambassador for Aviation Gin as Aviation Gin can. So for us, it's that brilliant intersection of a product that is better than anything else on the market, and then also marketing. We love marketing. And so marketing Aviation Gin has been one of the most fun endeavors I've ever had.
Which insights from the film business have you brought into the gin business?
Well, I mean, non-traditional marketing is the biggest one. You know, I don't, and my partner George and I both sort of feel like, you know, the paid ad business is a little tricky these days, and not necessarily something that catches waves the way like, you know, digital and viral marketing does. And again, it goes back to that same lesson I learned on Deadpool, which is necessity is the mother of invention. We don't have a marketing budget the way some of the big, massive, you know, century-old gin companies do. Ours is tiny. And because of that, we have to think out of the box, and because of that, we have so much more fun doing it. So creating Aviation Gin content has been one of the great adventures of my life. It's been so much fun.
So you have like viral videos that you're shooting, and what other kinds of things are you doing?
Tons of viral videos, tons of, not tons, but just enough that we feel each one that we do invest in makes a huge impact. I mean, some of the things that we've done have had way over 1 billion impressions, and and it's just, I mean, we did a video with Richard Branson that was giant. We did some stuff with Jimmy Fallon that was huge, and it's some of it is leveraging relationships. I mean, I recognize the fact that I can get into rooms that maybe, you know, unknown guy who owns a gin company can't. Yeah, so I definitely use that to our advantage, and I also make fun of that in our viral videos. I mean, our viral videos are hyper self-aware. Okay. You know, so we often place me in the position of dum-dum.
You know, people come up to me all the time and they say, what makes Aviation Gin so delicious? Most of the time I run away because non-celebrities frighten me.
You have a relationship with Virgin Airlines?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
That came about pretty organically. I mean, you know, Virgin Airlines is sort of like if you're going to look at it as an airline, it's also kind of a rock star airline, you know, and I think that they saw Aviation Gin as this incredibly fast-growing spirit, and something that they wanted on board their fleet and in all their lounges and that sort of thing, and we just thought, let's do something fun about it. So we met with the Virgin team, and we came up with this pitch with Richard Branson, where I'm sort of sitting there talking to Richard Branson and basically telling Richard Branson that, or allowing Richard Branson to believe that I think we're merging. And he's just, no, this is just a partnership.
But as a businessman, I know all deals are about scale, scope, not the least of which, scale. We're even more focused on ROI, KPI, 3PO, EPS, and OMG WTF.
Ryan.
Yes, Sir Richard.
Go easy on the business jargon.
I often love casting myself in the role of just complete business idiot, and that's super fun. So, and Sir Richard Branson is a huge sport about these kinds of things, and he very much loves laughing at himself, as do I.
So what's your goal? Do you want to see this acquired, or do you want to grow it exponentially?
I want to grow it. No matter what happens, even if it's acquired tomorrow, I have to be a part of its DNA still. So it's something I'm passionate about. So, you know, hopefully I'll get to be a part of this for the next 40 years, whether I'm the owner or someone else.
Would you consider expanding into other spirits as well?
I probably would, but I'd have to find something that I really, truly believe in. I couldn't just sort of do it. I also don't have time for that sort of thing.
Yeah, right. And it's not like, I mean, could you see yourself expanding into restaurants and all that, or is that too much?
No, I don't want. No, I mean, it's a matter. I think you have to have an authentic connection with something. You don't want to I just don't want to be a guy who's just acquiring crap just to acquire crap. I have to have a really authentic connection with it. Otherwise, I think, you know, the audience, the people that, the consumers of whatever that product is, are going to know that I don't have that same sort of fluency with whatever the product is. So I have to have a connection with it. And if I don't, there's no point.
So do you have other investments, or is this your main one?
Oh yeah, I have other things that I'm invested in, but I'm not the face of or anything like that.
What kinds of things are you excited about?
I get excited about stuff that's kind of you know, inventive. I love ingenuity. I love anything that sort of I think is interesting. I'm not like a guy that sits around sort of rolling the dice, looking at the stock market and that kind of thing. I don't know anything about that. But with Maximum Effort Productions is obviously my production company. It's we are focused on a lot of different kind of fun things. One thing that's a huge priority for us is, again, we're always looking to do stuff that's a little outside of the box and sort of bucks the traditional system. But we found a kind of a thriller horror story on Reddit, believe it or not, read it no sleep, called The Patient Who Nearly Drove Me Out of Medicine, which is one of the most frightening stories I've ever read in my entire life. It's a short story, about 80 pages, but it's just engrossing in every way, and half the time you're reading it, you have chills going up your spine. So that's something I'm really excited about, just because it's a completely different avenue to pull source material from, which is, pulling it basically from a form of social media, which is kind of unorthodox. And then I think with Maximum Effort, we're going to look at, we love marketing, so we sort of are branching out in that area yet. We're not at the point where we're ready to make some kind of crazy announcement, but it's something we're passionate about. We love inventive, groundbreaking marketing, and that's something that we're very passionate about. So we'll see if we move the ball down the field there too.
What do you want the Ryan Reynolds brand to represent long term?
Oh man, I think it's got to be quality and to some degree something that is also inspiring and entertaining and and fun and doesn't take itself too seriously. Like I don't take myself too seriously, there's an old line from a movie that you would never expect to have that much wisdom, but there's an old line from Van Wilder, which is, don't take life too seriously because you'll never get out alive. And it's true. I mean, that's sort of, I've held that with me for, almost 20 years now since that movie, but it's very true, you're never gonna get out alive, so have some fun while you're here.
Do you have, now that people know that you're invested in this company, do you have a lot of people trying to get a hold of you and offering you business opportunities?
Yeah, it's not so much that. I have a lot of people that are trying to get involved in Aviation Gin. So I feel a lot of those kinds of inquiries, like, oh, can I buy in, or can I invest, or can I, pretty much the answer.
That's a good problem to have,
That's a great problem to have. I wish I could say yes to the people, but it's a great problem to have.
Yeah. In thinking about your future, what's important to you?
Family, 100%. As anyone will know, it's almost frustratingly so for some of the people I work with, is that I gotta make sure that my time is, my time with my family is prioritized over anything else.
Is it something that you could see your kids involved in one day, Aviation Gin?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, I don't, you always want to give your kids every opportunity possible to sort of sample different walks of life and things. So I have zero investment in them doing anything that I'm involved in, be it show business or Aviation Gin. I just want them to do whatever they want to do. So
yeah.
I prefer it not be show business. Once they're 18, no problem.
It's like, no show business, go into the liquor business. That's where I want you.
That's whatever a responsible parent should do.